Today we've gotten insane news. I mean, we knew it was coming because it's alpha and they were talking about announcing stuff today, but we pretty much got, at least from courtesy of WoWhead, we have gotten all of the new talents and trees and reworks. Now, not everything exists. For example, Conduit of the Celestials for Mistweaver and Windwalker isn't in here, but we can actually take a look at Brewmaster specifically, as well as like other classes and stuff, but we're not going to worry about other classes right now. We're just focused on Brewmaster. Now, when you pull up this article, all you're going to see is question marks. Now, hovering over the abilities will show you what is going to be present in said tree. But basically in this video, what my goal is to do is to talk about what talents are being removed, changed, added, and just give my overall thoughts. Now, I've gone ahead and I've already read through most of these abilities, so I'm going to be pseudo-reacting live. I might find something that I missed on my first read-through. Another thing that I've done is I've gone in and I've just gone into Photoshop and I tried to copy the pictures over to give us an example of what we're going to see that's new. For example, in the new tree here. This is just a build I copied from live servers currently in 11.2. You can see the question marks are kind of the new abilities. Everything that's filled in is what we're kind of already playing, and everything that's grayed out is something that we're not currently playing in our active build for the most part. So I'm going to try to go over everything in this video and talk about everything that they've added, removed, and all that fun stuff. So we're going to start. Let's talk about what they're removing in the old tree. So let's take a look at the old tree. So I'm using Photoshop here just because I don't know why I'm using Photoshop, but it made the most sense to me. Okay, so we're going to be seeing the removal of a couple of talents. Finally, they are removing Black Ox Adept, as well as the Heightened Guard capstone for Ox Dance. Ox Dance is staying. From what we can see on the tooltip, it's staying in its current iteration, which is 60% of max health. I think this is a difficult one to tune. I'd like to see Blizzard maybe find middle ground and just make it 50, but Ox Dance is staying. They are also removing Call to Arms, Chi Surge, and Weapons of Order is going away from what we see in our current tree. Now, of course, it's alpha, so things can change. They can always add it back. Personally speaking, I don't like Weapons of Order. I think it's a clunky cooldown. I've ranted about this before. You've heard other Brewmasters rant about this before. It's a cooldown you press, and then you have to ramp, and you don't get like any kind of satisfying feeling from it. It doesn't make you overpowered. It doesn't increase the rate you play at. It refunds the keg smash charge. It gives you a little bit of mastery, which you can't really have any noticeable effect on, outside of the fact that it makes you glow cool colors. Not the best. So I'm glad they're removing it, and they are keeping Press the Advantage, but they're reworking it, which I'll talk about in a second. Everything else they are keeping outside of Strike at Dawn. Strike at Dawn is retiring. Thank God. It is an unplayed talent. There's no reason to ever play it. So yeah. So that is what is being removed in the old tree. Everything else is finding a new home in the new talent tree, which is going to be nice. There is going to be slightly different pathing. So let's talk about the pathing changes before we start talking about some of the new talents. Now, as you can probably notice, the layout is a little different than what we've seen before. Now, Keg Smash, I'm going to just do this. So things like Keg Smash, Purifying Brew, and Shuffle are staying. Elixir of Determination is staying, but it's moved up from this area here. So it's bounced up. What if I had like a drop shadow? Yeah, that'll be good. All right. So Elixir has moved up. Rushing Jade Wind has moved over from its kind of right side. And then Gift of the Ox and Spirit of the Ox have actually moved down to these locations here, making room in this like third row of the tree for a couple different talents. So that's all staying. We are seeing Quick Sip and Blackout, or Staggering Strikes, sorry, go from the center over to the left once, which means you have to play through it, or you have to play through August Blessing to get to Gift of the Ox, which isn't a big deal because some of these talents are pretty strong. We also have two new talents, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We've also seen Elusive Footwork move way up from the bottom of the tree. We saw One with the Wind move over. We saw Pretense Facepalm. Actually, Facepalm's kind of in like the same spot, but we saw Counter Strike has moved down to here. Pretense has moved up to here. Tranquil has kind of like done this little dance where Tranquil used to be actually up here. Training jumped up, and like this, for some reason, this little tree like did a little like shuffle, little dance here. No pun intended with shuffle. So that's all good. Nizao has moved from the middle of the tree down to the bottom, and he is now his kind of own little capstone section, which is good. Also, I just realized that This should be over here. I put that in the wrong spot. That's not a big deal. Most of this area of the tree is actually like unchanged. This is exactly what you've seen before. We are seeing Resolve stay in the same spot, which is good. Now, Charred Passions and Dragonfire Brew has moved over and has made better pathing. Exploding Keg used to be kind of right here in the middle of the tree, and it's kind of moved down. Ox Dance has then swapped with it, and Storm Stout Last Keg kind of jumped down to the bottom of the tree. So those are all the movement changes that we've seen. We obviously still have new talents. The only thing this is gonna bother me, so I'm just gonna change this now and go in here. We're gonna just like drag this over. All right, we're set. So those are all the movement changes. So let's talk about what was buffed. So the first thing that I noticed is that Staggering Strikes has been increased. So Staggering Strikes in the past, basically every time you blackout kick, it reduces your stagger by a flat amount, which is fine until you start getting into like infinitely scaling content. And then that percentage gets skewed when it's competing with something like Quicksip, which is a 5% value, which starts pretty low in terms of like if you're in lower content. 5% of like 100K is way smaller than 5% of 1,000,000. So there's an issue there. But what they've done is they've now increased it based on your missing health, which can make it a little bit more competitive in some environments. There is a world where you can start playing with some more blackout kick based talents with what they've added to make it so you're actually reducing your stagger quite a bit with this talent. But we'll have to see. Obviously, we're going to need to wait to see alpha and beta testing before we can really make a good judgment. I think this is an improvement to the talent, but I can't really see a world where we're still going to play it. Another weird buff that they've done is the choice node between shadowboxing treads and fluidity emotion. Fluidity emotion used to also make you deal less damage with blackout kick. It actually they removed that negative aspect of the talent now. It now just has a reduced cooldown, which has a lot of cool implications with some other blackout talents, blackout combo being one of them. They've added a improved blackout kick node here that increases the damage by 20%, so you can get some good stuff there. Could be a potential in like single target, which is kind of nice. Another interesting talent that we're seeing changed is Bob and Weave. It's actually increasing the duration of your stagger up to 5 seconds instead of 3 like it normally has been. Bob and Weave is already a really competitive talent. Black Ox Brew has some nice damage implications when you're able to like reset your brews, getting more stomp damage, etc. But Bob and Weave now being up to 5 seconds is actually like a pretty sizable buff, because Bob and Weave was already competitive in terms of like mitigation. It was just it didn't provide anything to you for pure damage. So kind of interesting there. High Tolerance is also seeing some kind of change. I don't know if this is a buff or not, but instead of giving you haste based on the delayed or the amount of stagger you have, it's actually going to refund Purifying Brew's cooldown based on the amount of elevated stagger. It's only saying 3 and 6. I'm guessing that's per point you add. I don't know if elevated stagger just means it has to be red stagger. I don't know if it means it has to just be above green. We have to kind of see what this exact terminology means. I wish they were just like, this is a common criticism I have of Blizzard. They don't word their talents like appropriately. I think they try to be a little bit too vague with it, because they don't really mention ever having elevated stagger in almost any other area of the monk, unless I missed it, but I'm pretty sure that's like a weird fake thing. But basically, this is getting reworked in a slight sense, where it's going to be really, really powerful now. Actually, probably even more powerful than High Tolerance currently is on live, even though we do end up playing it. So we'll see. And then the last thing that I noticed that they buff, and again, if I missed anything, let me know, but in terms of pure buffs, Storm Stout's Last Keg is being bumped up as well. It's now dealing 50% additional damage, up from its current 20%? I think it's 20%. Why do I want to say it's 20, but it might not be. Hopefully, we might just have to cut this out. Those look like penguins behind me, but it's 5 men on a beach. Yeah, 20%. So this is a pretty good change, I would say. It's also going to grant another charge, and it's increasing its range by 10 yards. So that means, and a common criticism of Brewmaster that I've had, and other players have had as well, is that we have no good range abilities. Like, Keg Smash is only a 15, 20-yard range, so having it increase by this much means we can actually just yeet kegs. And this is going to be really good for, like, pulling. Dealing this much more damage means you're probably going to have maybe less threat issues. Hopefully they fix some of the other issues with Keg Smash, but pretty good. So everything else in the tree looks like it's changed, or it has been kept the same relative to what it's going to be, because they are doing a pretty massive squish in terms of stats and damage. As you can see, like Blackout Kick like for staggering strikes, it's reduced by 4,000. Like your staggers are reduced by 4,000. That's obviously really, really small compared to what we have now. If you don't know, they are doing a squish in the near future, aka midnight. So let's talk about some of these new nodes. So first we have, as I've kind of already previously mentioned, we have improved blackout kick. I'll do this so you can see these like side by side. Let's see, does that work? Okay, maybe I'll just go down. We don't need to see the top kick smash one, right? Okay, so improved blackout kick. It's this node right here. It just increases your blackout kick by 20%. It's kind of a dumb node. I don't like when these nodes are in the tree. I don't understand why the blackout kick can't just like deal more damage baseline, and then you don't have to have a dumb talent like this in the tree, and you can like condense it or add something else that's a little bit more flavorful. But anyways, it's here. Next, we're getting Swift as a coursing river. Drinking from a brew. So this would be Celestial Brew, Celestial Infusion. If you're playing, obviously, you're going to play either one of those. Purifying Brew, Fortifying Brew, Black Ox Brew are generally what these are going to be considered. It's going to increase your movement speed by 15% and your auto attack speed by 10% for 15 seconds. This is something that will probably have permanent uptime. I doubt it'll stack, but basically this means that haste is probably still going to be a pretty terrible stat for brew. It also has some nice implications with Press the Advantage, which I will talk about in a few minutes here once we get to that talent, because it is actually a capstone, not a capstone, it is a choice node between that and Blackout combo. So next, we have Celestial Flames. So drinking from your brews has a 30% chance to coat you in Celestial Flame for 6 seconds. Now, before I go on, this was a talent that originally like gave you Breath of Fire and allowed you to apply Breath of Fire via Spinning Crane Kick. It was an old talent they've removed going into 11.2. It is now coming back, and it's in a reworked version. And I'm really happy this is coming back, because this is a talent that I always had and thought had a lot of potential, but was never explored. And I think what they're doing now is going to be fucking dope. So, depending on your choice node above, which is Rushing Jade Wind or Special Delivery, your Special Delivery throws a keg into the air that when it lands, it splashes, dealing fire damage to nearby allies. And your Rushing Jade Wind becomes a firestorm, increasing its radius by 30% and causing it to deal fire damage instead of nature. And so, thematically, I think this is dope as fuck. I think with some of the way that they're reworking some of these talents, you're going to have the ability to use a lot more brews in your kit, from Purifying Brew to Celestial Brew / Celestial Infusion, which I think all in all is really good. So I like this a lot. There's also another talent a little bit later in the tree that's going to like heal us for fire damage and nature damage that we deal. So this talent coincides with that really, really nicely. Jumping over to the left-hand side, actually to the left of Celestial Brew, we have something called Jade Flash. And this is another criticism that actually someone brought up on stream the other day, that they wish Crackling Jade Lightning was like a little bit more instant. Crackling Jade Lightning is a really obnoxious ability for Brewmaster to use because it costs energy. You have to stand still while using it, and it does basically no damage. So you would use it to pull with, but you're not getting threat on the mob you tag. It does that little damage. So this is increasing Crackling Jade Lightning by 75%, or I guess it does its total damage in 75% less time. It costs 75% less energy, and it strikes 4 additional targets, but has a 60-second CD. This is a little reminiscent of basically both Mistweaver and Windwalker that have this ability, like the Emperor's Capacitator, where they just get to cleave with their Crackling Jade Lightning, and it gets empowered over time, and they can deal like massive damage with it. I don't think this is going to deal massive damage for the Brewmaster Monk, but I think it's a nice little burst cooldown that potentially could be if they buff Crackling Jade Lightning's damage, and it allows you to have another button to get threat, ideally. Now again, this is something that we're gonna have to test. Like, this is something that I'm like trying to envision in my head, but I'm hoping it's practical. But I think with all the other talents that are gonna be existing here in the tree, I don't think it's gonna be that practical to run this. You're probably gonna have to spend your talent points elsewhere. So moving down kind of right past Walk with the Ox, right here, there's this choice node, and this is going to be your Press the Advantage and Blackout combo. Now, this tooltip on Blackout combo is weird because it's foregoing including Celestial Brew, Purifying Brew, and Breath of Fire. Now, I don't know if this is just a bug on the server, or if they're actually removing those abilities from Blackout combo, and now it's only going to ever empower the other 2 abilities. It's going to be the same. It's Tiger Palm increased damage and Keg Smash having additional reduction. Still going to be good. It is nice because it removes the possibility of munching or consuming your buff preemptively on accident because of Purifying Brew, but it also reduces the nuance of making active decision making, where maybe you want an extra DR from Breath of Fire, maybe you have to use Celestial Brew early enough in a pull, but you want it to be strong enough to intake some of the damage where you want to Blackout Kick into a Celestial Brew. So if this is a true change, I'm going to be really disappointed. I hope that it has all the other abilities. Maybe if they remove Purifying Brew, that's fine, because there's almost no practical use for it, but we'll see. So I would consider this a nerf if it's in this tooltip state. Next, we have Press the Advantage. This is going to replace Tiger Palm. Your main hand auto attacks reduce the cooldown of your brews by 0.5 seconds and block your target's chi, dealing extra damage. So this is normal. After 10 attacks, your next Tiger Palm casts at 100% effectiveness. So no longer is it giving you a ramping damage buff, and all it's doing is making your next Tiger Palm deal big dam, which can be really good with Blackout combo, but you can no longer play Blackout combo. So this is probably the worst decision I've seen out of this tree. I think Press the Advantage is very interesting, especially if you have, again, like higher attack speed with Swift as a Coursing River, which we've talked about earlier. I think having something like Fluidity and Motion is pretty sick to allow you to have like a better resource economy so you don't have to spam a filler. It's unfortunate that they've put these on the same node because I think it'd be really cool to have like a really nasty single target Tiger Palm build for like raid. But that's okay. Again, it's early alpha. They can always change their mind. If they don't, we'll figure it out. It's not a big deal. I think most people will probably still lean towards Blackout combo just for its practicality in most instances. But Press the Advantage is still there. That's good. All right, so next we have Awakening Spirit and Vital Flame. So Awakening Spirit, Purifying Brew surrounds you with a protective energy for 15 seconds. When staggered damage would be dealt to you, instead absorb up to 50% until 2,832 has been prevented. So this is a static number that will probably scale with maybe Mastery, Versatility, could scale with Crit based on Absorbs with Celestial Fortune. But basically it's like a just extra absorb on your stagger damage, which is cool. Again, something that we're gonna have to play with to really grasp how it works. Vital Flame, on the other hand, heal for 50% of all fire and nature damage dealt by your spells and abilities. This is really cool with the new Celestial Flame talent, which will empower your Special Delivery Kegs or Rushing Jade Wind damage. It's basically like a leech node in a way. As long as you keep up Rushing Jade Wind or you're purifying often for Special Delivery, you're going to be healing for a portion of the damage that you're dealing from that, which is pretty cool. Also, when you get into something like Master of Harmony, where you're getting a ton of nature damage from something like Chi Burst, from Aspect of Harmony, etc., you're also going to be healing for a ton. So hopefully what this means is that Brewmasters are going to have a lot of self-sustain. Now, is it going to work with all those abilities? We don't know if there's a blacklist, a whitelist. Again, something that we're going to have to test and really dig into before we know. But pretty solid node here. And finally, let's talk about the capstones. So Mighty Stomp, like I've talked about, is staying, but we are getting something called Heart of the Ox. This is going to increase your mastery by 5%, and it's going to be doubled while you have the Black Ox active. Now, we aren't getting Call to Arms procs anymore. Nizao is still a 2-minute cooldown, presumably. So you're basically getting 25-ish percent uptime, maybe a little less than that, 20% uptime on a 10% mastery buff. And you're also going to just have 5% mastery from this. Can be powerful, but I think in terms of like point allocation, I just don't know if we'll have enough to actually spend down here. So again, we'll have to see once we actually have access to the trees. And finally, we have the Exploding Keg capstones. These things are sick. So first we have Keg Volley. Exploding Keg resets the cooldown of your Keg Smash. So this is like casting Weapons of Order, but twice as often, and it actually is rewarding to hits. So you're gonna, instead of like Keg Smashing and then popping weapons and then Keg Smashing again to get that reset basically, you're now gonna be able to Keg Smash Exploding Keg and then go into another Keg Smash again. So really like a lot of potential burst damage here. And then you have a choice node, Fuel on the Fire, and Empty the Cellar. So Fuel on the Fire, Exploding Keg causes your next 2 casts of Keg Smash to summon a whirl of flame, which spirals outward, dealing 500 give or take additional fire damage to each enemy struck. So basically, you're gonna just become this fucking fire tornado if you're playing like Celestial Flames and shit and Rushing Jade Wind. Dude, I can just like picture this. Is so fucking sick. I think this is gonna be so cool and thematic. I'm so excited. Probably pretty decent fire damage. It makes Exploding Keg a little bit more bursty. I don't know what the meta is going to be in terms of like what you're going to cast immediately after Exploding Keg. You'd probably like Keg Smash, Explode, Spinning for the damage as long as Rushing Jade Wind is up. Then you go Keg, Blackout Kick, Keg, something like that. And you'd probably just get crazy damage. So that's pretty dope. And then you have Empty the Cellar. Exploding Keg can be reactivated within 20 seconds to throw 5 additional kegs at nearby targets, dealing physical damage and reducing the cooldown of your brews by 0.5 seconds each. So presumably 2.5 seconds. Also, if it's throwing, I don't know if it's throwing kegs or like keg smashes, because that would be pretty sick. But basically, you can use Exploding Keg twice and it does like a little mini version of its cooldown after the fact. Very cool, very thematic. I'm very excited to play with these eventually in beta. Presumably, I don't know if I'll have alpha access. So pretty sick. So those are all of the talents. I'm very excited for these. I'm excited to test. Those are my initial thoughts. I am a little sad to see weapons go because that felt like our only, like, it's a cooldown that we've just been kind of married to since Shadowlands, and now it's going away, which is like always kind of sad. I'm glad that they made Nizao a powerful CD because he at least feels pretty good to hit. I think they still need to rework some talents like Mighty Stomp. That's still a bad talent. But yeah, pretty good. I don't know about pathing. I have to like map out the points. The last thing I want to talk about is the Apex talents. So Apex talents are basically an extension of our talent tree that we get the choice to opt into or to ignore completely. Now this is going to come down to tuning. It's going to come down to interaction with the class. It might come down to just like pure content. So we're going to have to see. So what is it? Once you start to get to like max level, you're going to get the option to choose Bring Me Another. Drinking a brew has a 20% chance to leave you with an empty barrel, which is tossed alongside your next keg smash to deal big fizz dam to your target. So basically it's going to amp up your keg smashes and it's a 20% chance to do so. Nothing too crazy. I think the animation on this can look pretty fun, just like chucking kegs like crazy. But again, I don't have really any thoughts about this. I think it's like fine. Again, it comes down to tuning at the end of the day. Next, you have 2 points into it. It's Bring Me Another again. I'm assuming these are going to be different names. Physical damage dealt increased by 5%, and this stacks to 2. So I'm guessing it's going to go up to 10 when you send the second talent point into this node. Empty barrels now ricochet to strike 2 additional targets, dealing 20% reduced damage on each bounce. So it's like a little chain lightning keg, which is kind of fun. Like that's pretty dope. I don't know if it's going to also get reduced with its cleave damage if you put another point into this, so it goes down to like 10, for example. But basically, we're assuming that your physical damage is going to be up by 10%. This seems like it could be really good with Shado-pan. I haven't looked at the Shado-pan tree at all, so I don't even know what talents we're getting there. But yeah, this is going to be super tight, I think. I'm not a fan of the first node, but the second 2 nodes seem pretty sick. And then lastly, whenever you cast Fort Brew or Celestial Infusion, you tap a fresh keg, granting yourself and 2 nearby allies a refreshing drink and leaving you with an empty barrel. Upon taking damage, automatically consume the refreshing drink to heal for 15,000 over 8 seconds. So I'm assuming that this is going to be almost like, not similar to Prop Paladin's like Armaments, but basically you're going to be able to buff your allies, your nearby allies, giving them like a heal over time effect that triggers once they take damage. Now for you, when it goes on yourself, it's going to probably start healing immediately because you have stagger ticking. But for like other players, if they take environmental damage or they get hit by a bolt, you're going to start healing them. I think this is sick. I think most tanks should have this kind of stuff in their kit where they're actually able to support their allies through healing. The one thing that's frustrating about Brewmaster specifically, at least up to this point, has been the lack of being able to really help your group outside of very niche things like Ring of Peace and an instant Vivify, which even doesn't feel that impactful all that much. So that is the reworked Brewmaster talent tree. I have not looked at Shado-pan, Master of Harmony, or the class tree yet. So I'm going to have to start diving into those. I'll probably do separate videos for each, but I really wanted to talk about this one because there was so much to unpack with things being removed, things being added, things being changed around, as well as the Apex talents. So very excited to see what people start testing once Alpha comes out. I think tomorrow. I believe it comes out on the 2nd of October. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if I missed anything, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.